Human sexuality is very enigmatic. Hi, I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, and in this segment I'm going to be going over human sexuality theories. Now in a previous video I had already gone over some of the major theories. However, I thought it was important to be visiting some of the other theories where certain areas are more highlighted than others. So let's go ahead and get started here. So everyone is aware of the sexual response cycle here. Right over here, let me move my screen. Right over here is the sexual response cycle for males, and then for females. For females, there might be a possibility for multiple orgasms here before resolution, whereas males, that is not always the case. So there's 4 stages of physiological sexual response. Excitement, where there's vasocongestion occurring, accumulation of blood in the blood vessels of a region of the body, vaginal lubricants, glands of clitoris swells, nipples become erect, sex flush may appear, increase in pulse rate and blood pressure. And then there's plateau vasocongestion reaches its peak. In females, the orgasmic platform forms, tightening of the entrance of the vagina, and then orgasm. In males, orgasm consists of a series of rhythmic contractions of the pelvic organs at 0.8-second intervals. In males and females, there is a sharp increase in pulse rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate. So, taking a look at the Masters and Johnson response cycle, why it was so important is because looking at some of the other, this was one of the first times that this was being actually documented. Just by the way, the final portion of this is the resolution, where the body returns to the unaroused state. Phase takes about 15 to 30 minutes, gradual return of pulse rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate to the unaroused levels. Refractory period, time during which men are incapable of being aroused again, have an erection, or have an orgasm. So multiple orgasm, a series of orgasms occurring within a short period of time. Then afterwards, I think what is important to talk about is the Bernie, Zilbergild, and Carol Ellison's subjective model. And this was around in 1980. Includes 5 phases in the model. The first one being interest or desire, frequency of wanting to engage in sexual activity, and then arousal, excitation during sexual activity, physiological readiness, orgasm satisfaction. So this one focused more on the cognitive and subjective aspects of the whole response cycle, whereas Masters and Johnson was purely looking at kind of the physical aspect of it. So desire was more of a focus here. Now we're going into Helen Singer's triphasic model. And in this triphasic model, there's excitement. In fact, there's sexual desire, which is psychological interest, and then excitement, vasocongestion, muscular contractions, orgasm, resolution, body returns to unaroused state. And she also added the desire phase. She found that sexual dysfunctions fall into one of these 3 categories, and that it was possible to function in 1 or 2 of the phases while struggling in another. She found that treating dysfunctions in the desire phase were the most difficult because, as you know, these are more psychological in nature. So then you have the Weyland and Roth's cognitive model. And this is kind of a non-linear fashion. So perception of a sexual stimulus, this is where it starts. And then going into positive evaluation, and then arousal, and then perception of arousal, positive evaluation. And then you might go back to, again, arousal, perception of arousal, positive evaluation, sexual behavior, perception of behavior, and then positive evaluation, again, of perception of behavior, and then going back to arousal even more, or increase in sexual behavior, then turns into perception of behavior, then turns into positive evaluation, each time getting closer and closer to orgasm. So this is more of a kind of a cognitive approach as well. So let's take a look at the written portion of this and kind of explain this. I'm not going to go over this again. Finally, we're going to talk about Bassan's sexual response cycle. And here you have, again, kind of a nonlinear component going on. Spontaneous desire takes place, motivations for sex, and then sexual stimuli takes place. However, spontaneous desire can directly lead to sexual stimuli, even if not having motivations for sex. And then context and mind, sexual arousal, mind and body, and then that can be coming from spontaneous desire as well. So there's all of these areas where spontaneous desire can increase, and then responsive desire satisfaction. So this is kind of a rotating, cyclical manner, and not a linear fashion that we saw in terms of Masters and Johnson's original theory. I hope this has provided you with some interesting insight about human sexuality. Thank you for listening.